I am actually a cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with cancer in April of 2016. I had surgery, and I was living without cancer as of July of 2016. And so Gilda's Club's message just really spoke to me as a survivor and also a family member of survivors. My mom had breast cancer as well. So cancer has touched my life in many different ways.
Welcome back to You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Julie Johnson. I am the president and founder of Heart and Solutions here in Iowa. We're still doing telehealth sessions. We're still doing in-office sessions, in-school sessions, as well as in-home behavioral health counseling for kids.
And I'm Chrissa. I am the vice president in charge of our BHIS department. So BHIS stands for Behavioral Health Intervention Services. And that's our program where we work with kids in home on different behavioral skills. And we can also see them at school or in the office or telehealth right now as well. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
Yeah, we post on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Central every single week. So set your timer, set your alarm, and then we always recommend that you batch up your laundry or some other task that you hate, meal prepping or exercising, whatever it is. Go ahead and save that up for Sunday nights. And you can put on the podcast that gives you the entire week to get connected with any of the resources that our guests are sharing, or with your own counselor if you haven't seen your counselor in a little bit too long. So today we've got a special guest. We've got Emma Morgan here. Welcome, Emma. Hi, thanks for being here. So I'm really excited because Emma is, she's a licensed independent social worker. She is the clinical director of the Heart and Solutions Davenport office. And so there, she still sees clients out there. She does take a strength-based approach. She also takes a very trauma-informed approach out there and supervises the therapists out there as well. But today we get to interview Emma, not as clinical director of Heart and Solutions Davenport office, but as facilitator of groups at Gilda's Club in the Quad Cities. And I'm really excited to hear about Gilda's Club and the work that you're doing out there, Emma. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Will you tell us what Gilda's Club is?
Yeah, so Gilda's Club provides support for anyone who is affected by cancer, whether that is the person that has the diagnosis of cancer, or if it's a family member, a friend, a caregiver. Gilda's is just designed to be that place for anyone affected by cancer to come and receive support, networking opportunities, social opportunities, anything like that.
Love it. So it's very open in terms of who can participate, support people, family members, friends. And are these in-person groups, or are you doing any virtual groups at this time?
Yeah, a little bit of both right now. We do still have weekly in-person support groups. We have a Connecting Through Cancer group that is right now at the Moline Clubhouse every week. And then at the same time, there is a friends and family group as well. And that's also in person. That's actually a hybrid one. That's hybrid. So you can join in person or on Zoom. There are also several groups throughout the week or monthly that are offered in person, hybrid, or completely virtual.
Awesome. Wow. And this is free support, right? This is a free service and anybody can join.
Yep, that's correct.
Wow. So tell us about your journey. How did you come to be connected with Gilda's Club? How did you come to learn about this service? And then how did you come to become a facilitator of these groups?
Yeah, so I am actually a cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with cancer in April of 2016. I had surgery, and I was living without cancer as of July of 2016. And so Gilda's Club's message just really spoke to me as a survivor and also a family member of survivors. My mom had breast cancer as well. So cancer has touched my life in many different ways. So I had applied for a couple of different jobs with Gildas at a couple of different times, and was just fortunate enough to be offered the opportunity to facilitate groups.
Wow. So what was that like being part of those groups as a support family member, and then yourself with your cancer diagnosis, and then switching over from group participant member into facilitator? What was that process like?
Yeah, it's an interesting switch to make for sure. Going from receiving support to giving support. I do think, though, it gives me a pretty unique perspective on it and an understanding of what, the group members are going through, having been through it myself.
Mhm.
And you have people in the group at all different stages of this cancer diagnosis. So you've got people coming in who have just been diagnosed, and you've got people who are long-term survivors,
Mhm.
kind of all mixing together.
Yeah, and it's interesting too to see how group members can give each other support as well. When someone who is new, newer in the process of the treatment and everything, coming in with all of these questions and concerns, and someone who has been receiving treatment for quite some time, able to walk them through that and understand with them how how it is at the beginning versus middle versus end, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, what would you say are some of the common threads that people really need that support in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end? Because I would imagine the needs are so different in terms of that support at each phase.
They are, and they're also very similar as well. I think the biggest thing that anyone who is diagnosed with cancer, or even family members of people diagnosed with cancer, is the uncertainty, right? You never know, don't really know what happens next. You might have a plan, to have surgery, to have radiation, chemo, whatever the plan is. It doesn't always pan out the way that you plan for it to. So that uncertainty piece and not knowing exactly what comes next, even towards the end when you're in remission and living without cancer, the recurrence of cancer is very much, very likely in a lot of scenarios. So that uncertainty piece really sticks around.
Absolutely. And I know we kind of referred to it as the end of living in remission, but then, like you said, it's an ongoing process, and there's that continued not knowing. And I think that for all of us, there's a continued not knowing, right, in life in general.
Mhm.
But I think that it's, to me, when the pandemic started, for example, and you didn't know what next week was going to look like. You couldn't make plans for next month. And that for me was it wasn't that I lost control or that I lost certainty or the ability to plan for things. I never had that. I just thought that I did. And
Yeah.
I thought that I knew what next month or next week was going to be, pre-pandemic. And then came face to face with the realization that no, I never did. I never had any control over any of that. Um, and I think similarly, we, if you're living cancer free and you go, okay, I don't have that. It's more of a, okay, now I know that I don't have any control over the future versus now I don't have any control over the future. Does
Mhm.
does that sound right? Does that kind of track?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. So there are the family, friends, support groups. And
Mhm.
is that the group that you're leading, or which groups do you lead?
I don't have a group of my own quite yet. I'm still waiting for some licensure in Illinois to be able to do that. I did just co-facilitate a group, a young adult group. It was part of an educational series. So it was 4 parts and it was in partnership with the Gilda's Club in Chicago. So we actually had members throughout the entire country that because it was completely virtual. We had four groups. The first group was about body positivity. So learning, and understanding how your body changes throughout the cancer process and treatment, and still being able to have a positive outlook on your body. Then there was a mindfulness group learning mindfulness and a little bit of yoga techniques. And then there was a reclaiming intimacy group that helped a little bit more with that body positivity and just relationships in general. And then we also offer just a really informal support group for the young adults, which would be ages 18 through 39 for people diagnosed with cancer.
Wow, what a nice, it sounds like there's a lot of a great mix of different options. There's some cancer education, and then there's some psychoeducation, and then there's some practices that you're doing kind of in real time together as a group, and then there's the support piece. So it sounds like you guys are really just integrating all of those pieces together into these groups, which gives it that flexibility to be what group members want and need.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell me about how Gilda's Club got its name. What is the history here of this group?
Yeah, it's oh my gosh, I'm gonna say her last name, Gilda Reiner from
Saturday Night Live.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Yeah, it's
I almost didn't say it because I was like, I feel like maybe it's not a pop culture reference. Like, is this some woman that I should know about? But okay.
No, it is. Yeah. After her, because she had cancer and I believe passed away from cancer. So it was started in her honor, and now there's clubs throughout the entire country, I believe.
Wow.
Was it started by her family members or friends?
I believe so. Friends or family members. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing how one person's struggle with cancer can really positively impact so many people and on a nationwide level. That's just amazing to me when I hear those stories, because we think about these struggles that we go through in our lives, and when we see people making meaning out of somebody's life and honoring somebody in that way by helping other people, it's just beautiful. And each of the groups are led by licensed clinicians. Is that right? Or are there volunteers as well that are kind of helping?
Yeah, so every group will have a licensed clinician present. And then sometimes, depending on the group, there would be volunteers as well. Because of COVID, some of the groups have really been put on hold, and I'm hoping to be able to start some of the kids and teens groups in person again. And that's a scenario where potentially a volunteer would be there with me to be able to take a kid to the side if needed, or to help facilitate some of the activities.
How young are the kids that are participating in these groups?
It really just depends on who signs up for the groups. They do have in Chicago right now, which it's virtual, so any members in the Quad City area are able to join that way. A Red Door Squad, which is for teenagers. And that's for, again, teenagers that either themselves have been diagnosed or a family member or just affected in some way by cancer. And it is an informal support group. So there's activities and stuff to do, and also just an opportunity to talk about what's going on and emotions related to it and any other support that they might need.
That's beautiful, especially for children and teenagers to be able to have that support, because when you've got a family member who has been diagnosed with cancer and is going through treatment, everything changes for a child. I mean, if it's a parent, right, or even a grandparent, a lot of life changes and a lot of things when you're a child, those things kind of become, well, this is how life is, right? Like there's so many things that when I was growing up, I became an adult and realized, oh, not everybody went through that stuff, right? Or not everybody did that stuff. Like I just thought that was what people did. And so because those things can change at such a young age, the idea that these children and these teenagers have access to other children and other teenagers who are going through the same thing, because yes, their whole family may be, going through this experience together, but a lot of those family members are going to be adults and going to be processing it and experiencing it in a totally different way than a 7-year-old or a 15-year-old are going to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And now you have been, so I always love when counselors do counseling for themselves. I always love this. And my goal in life, right, is like I always want to have a counselor of my own because starting that process is hard. And so it's much easier to keep it going than to, start with new counselors and things like that. So I always kind of try to have that because we never know in life. We never know when something is going to happen that changes our world. And starting over from scratch with a counselor when we're going through maybe the hardest thing of our life is a completely different experience than already having that relationship built in with our counselor and then going to them with this new situation or information. So I love that you have had some counseling experiences as well. And I always kind of love when people check the I had a bad counseling experience box. Not that I love that people have had bad counseling experiences, but I think it's so important that we be talking about those because they do happen. And those are the things that can really shape a person's point of view about counseling and future behaviors around counseling and their family members. So it sounds like you had a great counseling experience and a bad counseling experience. Will you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, sure. So like we were saying, I'm currently seeing a counselor and it's great. Love her. But my journey to get to seeing her was kind of a little rocky and bumpy, I guess. I did have a couple situations. One was, it was fine. It didn't feel like a great fit though. And then I did have a situation with a therapist that I felt very judged and just not a safe place for me to be able to work through what I needed to work through at the time. So I did not keep seeing her after that. And I did, because of that, take a pretty long break from even trying to find someone else because I was worried that I was going to feel judged again. And even as a therapist myself, knowing that that is not the norm, that is not what should be happening in therapy, it was hard. I think I went 4 or 5 months probably before branching out again and like putting myself out there to try to find someone else. And that is when I found the therapist that I currently see. And I have a great relationship with her and I feel safe. It's just like I tell, my own clients and anyone else potentially looking for a therapist that the first one you see might not be right, and that's okay. And it's just about finding the right fit for you. And, you have to have that relationship with them. So even when I'm seeing kids and it feels a little off, I tell them, give me 4 or 5 sessions. If it still feels a little off, then we can explore other options because it's not always going to be the right fit. Even if your mom thinks it is or your doctor thinks it is, it's ultimately about what the client needs in that moment.
Absolutely. And sometimes that feeling of not a great fit isn't even about that counselor. It's just about like, well, my mom thinks this is a good fit. Right. So that's my mom can see that person, right? I would find my own, like, honestly, and those are valid reasons. Those are valid experiences to have and feelings to have. And so I love that you were able to go, nope, I know that, like, it's like, okay, I know that if I touch my computer cord, for example, it's not supposed to shock me, right? It's not supposed to electrocute me. However, if I touched it and it electrocuted me, like, it's going to be a long time before I touch that cord, right? And every time I touch it, I'm going to feel like, oh, a little bit weird, right? Until I've touched it enough times again, where I go, okay, I feel all right, kind of, handling that computer cord. And even though I know cognitively, like, it's not supposed to do that, right? And I think that your example is so great because, yeah, professionally that that's not how it's supposed to feel. And then you were able to take that information and go, no, I'm not going to continue to see somebody where I feel judged, where I don't feel like it's safe to talk about the things I need to talk about, because what's the point at that point, right? Like, what is the point? So I really love that, because the counselor that you have now, if you had continued to see a counselor that you felt like wasn't a great fit, then you wouldn't be seeing the counselor that you have now, where you're having a great experience. So I really love that. And I also love that you gave yourself that time between, right? You weren't like, well, I have to go see a counselor right now, right? When I'm not feeling safe to do so, because I just had this other experience. I love that you gave yourself that time and that freedom. And so it sounds like the second one was like, you felt judged, just didn't feel safe. And the first one, I love that example too, because sometimes it's like, this is a perfectly nice person, right? Like, there's nothing like wrong with this person. This counselor didn't like yell at me or anything, right? But it just isn't the right fit, right? And that's okay. I love that you validate that, especially, you as a counselor being able to say that. Does that ever happen in groups, in support groups, where either the group doesn't feel like a good fit, or maybe the facilitator and a member? How does that work in Gilda Club?
Yeah, I'm sure, that it does happen. I haven't experienced that or heard anything about that. I do know that there are a couple different options for some of the groups. So that could be something that if there's a specific group member or even the facilitator, joining a different group, or instead of the in-person group, doing the hybrid one or something like that, to offer a different option if it was something specifically in that group.
I love that. Options. Options are so key. Just having options, so empowering. I think it's just so exciting that you're kind of getting in so that you can do these groups. And are these standard curriculums? So if somebody is doing a Gilda's Club somewhere else, is it a standard kind of curriculum? You're going to have the same group experience, or are they kind of different depending who the facilitator is and what the group is made of?
Kind of both. It depends on the group, really. Like, the support group, that's just an open time to talk about what the group members need. Some of the groups geared towards younger children do have a curriculum, but it's kind of left up to the facilitator as well for what is the most practical for the group members. Say if there's 10 different options, 10 different weeks, but we're only doing a 6-week group, then I could go through and pick which ones felt most productive for the people, for the participants of the group.
That's great. So it's kind of always shifting and kind of always improving and adapting as you go. So in the support group then, did things come up where you go, okay, maybe this is something that maybe a person wants to do individual work or wants to do some family therapy work with their support people, or for family members and support people, where they need to kind of go through some individual work, maybe so that they're able to be the support person, right? And not the person always needing the support. How does that work in these groups?
Yeah, so if that were to be a scenario, the facilitator could speak with the individual or vice versa and help to facilitate a referral to potentially, individual therapy or even family therapy if that was something they needed for their family outside of, the group setting.
Are there other resources that you guys tend to refer to or to, share information with members of the group, other cancer support resources or family support resources that you found to be really helpful?
Yeah, we do an open to options group, and it helps especially people who are newer to the diagnosis understand their options, whether it's for treatment, helping to make any decisions, and just understanding more so of the process of it all.
That's great. Wow. So it's really kind of built in there where
Mhm.
somebody can do this kind of particular group and really get to know what resources are available and
Yep.
be able to get connected. Yeah, because that it's so important to have those communities around us when we're going through anything in life, and to know that we're not alone, and to know that we're not the only ones who maybe had certain feelings. I mean, gosh, there are so many feelings when we're going through things that when other people look at those experiences, it's easy to project certain feelings right onto those experiences. Well, if it was me, I would feel this. And then you go through that experience and you're like, oh, nope. Right? Like, you had that where you're like, oh, I thought parenting is always an example for me. Like, I thought this is what it was going to be like. It is not like that at all. Right. And so then I kind of know, for me, I kind of go, yeah, like it's so different, right, than what I think society sometimes thinks that these experiences are going to be, and how we should feel and what we should do. And there's all these pressures on us. And having a place where we can talk to other people who might not be feeling what society would say, right, is the right way to feel or the right way to act or the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm trying to think of Gilda Radner, like what she played on SNL, because I know she had a lot of characters, right? But this was before Adam Sandler and before like David Spade and Chris Farley, right? Like this is like Steve Martin times in SNL, isn't it?
Yeah, it's old. I looked it up. It's all like black and white photos. I had no idea who she was. But she looks familiar once you Google her. So
okay. All right. Does she have any main like characters that we would like? I always think of Molly Shannon, like that like superstar.
It says Roseanne was one of her characters. And Judy Miller.
Now I'm gonna need to find
if
where
you like
SNL
Google
is,
her,
because I don't.
You'll recognize her.
Okay. I just think it's so cool because I had no idea that she, had these groups connected with her and that it was in her memory and her honor. And I just think that that's so neat. And what a way to use that notoriety, right? Like when you say Gilda Radner, people know that name. Even if like I can't picture her right now, but like I know that name. I know she's connected with SNL, right? And so what a beautiful way to be able to take that recognition and leave this kind of legacy of healing and support for other people.
Yeah, she was only 42 when she passed away too. That's crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
And I believe, like I said, I'm not super familiar with any of the characters that she played, but there was a red door with
there we go, red door.
One of them, all of them, something. So all of the Gilda's clubhouses have red doors.
That's cool.
And that's their Red Door Squad, who's the teenager group. That's where that name comes from. But yeah, even the Moline Clubhouse is inside the Unity Point Hospital, and it has a red door.
That's cool.
That is really cool. I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole later now, looking for Easter eggs and stuff of these little, because these things are so important when we talk about legacy, memorial, like, and when we talk about impact on the world, right? Like these things are important. These are mile markers, like the red door thing. That's a mile marker, right? Like that speaks to the importance of each person's life, right? By highlighting the importance of her life. And I think that that's just really, really beautiful. I love that. I'm definitely going to go Google rabbit holing to go look what's, yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. So really, really great. So are there any barriers that you see to people either starting group, internal or external barriers that people have to starting group? And how do you guys see people kind of overcoming those barriers?
Yeah, so a big barrier that was recognized not too long ago with the Davenport clubhouse that we had, which was in an old house. It was along River Drive. It was big, beautiful house that groups were done in, and just services were conducted out of. However, it was not on any of the public transportation routes. So it was difficult for some members to consistently get to groups or any other service, or even start services, because they knew they weren't going to be able to get there weekly or even monthly. So that was one of the big reasons that Gilda's Club did move into right now in Moline. We're in the Unity Point Hospital, right down the hall from the cancer center there. So it also works really well to facilitate any referrals to Gilda's Club from the hospital. And then later, hopefully in August or September, the Davenport Clubhouse will be opening in Genesis to be able to provide that the same effect that is happening in Moline.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. I love that, you guys are able to identify that barrier, because yes, transportation is a huge barrier. And when you are fighting for your life, all of your resources need to go to that, right? We're not worried about getting a new car. We're not worried about, any of that stuff. We're worried about focusing on healing and health, right? And so and legacy and meaning, right? And all of those things become everything. And so being able to identify that and go, yeah, it's if people can't get here, they can't benefit. And so I love that you guys are teaming up with those health facilities to be able to go, nope, it's right here. You're coming here. You can go to your meeting, right? You can come here, go to your meeting, kind of a one-stop shopping. I think that's beautiful. Any internal barriers that sometimes people have with joining group or coming to group?
I think maybe just that, overall hesitancy of, opening up to people you don't know, right? Even though they're in the same situation as you or a very similar situation, just it takes a certain degree of vulnerability to open up to a group about whether it's your own treatment or a family member's treatment. So just, getting comfortable with other group members, and also, starting as a new group member into a really well-formed group of people that know each other and have been going through treatment together essentially since they come to group every week, and updating each other for then, a new person to come in. I'm sure that can be very intimidating.
Absolutely, because I would imagine those bonds form between group members, and those are very strong bonds. And because it's an open group, which is wonderful that anybody can join at any time, but because it's an open group, that there is a barrier a little bit there. And so I love that you guys kind of have some of the, yes, it's a support group, and there's support groups that are kind of free flow. You also kind of have some of that structure too. So everybody in that group kind of has a focus, right, for that group, and then also the support piece where everybody's sharing. So I think that's beautiful. I think that's a really nice way to help integrate somebody who's new to the group in there. And I would imagine that yes, that's difficult. I think in any situation, I think any kind of counseling or any kind of social interaction, really. Like, it's difficult to talk about our challenges, and it's difficult to talk about our situations. And I'm sure that there is a fair amount of subject matter that like we're coming to grips ourselves with what's happening, right? And this might be the first time we're sharing some of these events outside of like our best friend and our mom, right? Or like outside of our grandma, and our like being able to tell our story and share what is happening, you know, in our day to day, but internally as well. It's a brave thing. It's a really courageous thing, and the payoff of that courage, that vulnerability, is that support that feels genuine, right? Because okay, I said it, right? I said the thing that like people should yell at me for, right? And nobody did, right? People said, yeah, me too, right? Like, and that is so huge. But it's scary to get to that point for sure. I think that's really validating. But like, yeah, it's normal. That does happen. And I love your quote, be fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire. Reminds me of Hunger Games. Where she has the fire dress.
Yeah.
So tell me about this quote. Where did you come across it? What do you love about it?
You know, I don't even know where I came across it. I really struggled with this question of coming up with a quote. And then that's actually been in like my little bio on Instagram for years now. So I was like, well, it obviously means something if it's been there that long. But just really, you know, going after what you want and just taking the initiative. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. But just, you know, advocating for yourself and going after what you want.
Love that. Yeah, there's a quote by Thoreau, right? Really well-known quote, go confidently in the direction of your dreams. It's on like every journal, right? And I remember, and to a similar vein, right? That we move forward, we progress because we need that purpose in life, right? And I had a conversation the other day where I was talking about like, well, when I'm my parents' age, my parents are 78 and 77. So I was having this conversation about, oh, when I'm my parents' age, I'm going to do this or that. And the person was like, don't you want to like sit on your porch for a little bit? Like, don't you want to, like, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm not the porch sitting type, you know, like, I'd love to be able to porch sit. Absolutely. But I know myself, I'd be everywhere. Right. And so but I think that it's because I think that we become that way. I don't think we're born that way. I think we become that way when we find what sets our soul on fire, what our purpose is in life. And then we just can't leave it alone, you know? And so I really love that Thoreau quote always makes me laugh because I had a mug, a giant, it was like my first like giant, you know, mug ever. I was in college and I like big mugs and I cannot lie. And so I had this giant mug and it said, go confidently in the direction of your dreams. And my roommate was like climbing or stacking stuff and she knocked it on the floor and broke it. And it was like the biggest fight we ever had. And she still brings it up. And I'm like still a little mad at her. But that, you know, I think to that same vein of purpose is so important and meaning making is so important. And I think it sounds like that's what you guys are really doing in these groups, is really helping people to find that, to make that meaning. Wonderful. Well, Emma, thank you so much for being here. And if you could give one suggestion to somebody on the fence about starting a group or starting in group or going to group, what suggestion might you give that person?
Just give it a try, right? It's okay if it doesn't work out. And you know, that's possible. And also it could work out and it could give you the support that you need, whether that's from other group members, the facilitator, whatever it is, it could get you what you need.
Love that. And how can somebody, if anybody's listening and goes, oh, I need that, I need something like that, how can they sign up or get involved with some of these groups?
Yeah, so everyone needs to go through a new member orientation, and that can be set up by contacting Gilda's Club. You just Google Gilda's Club Quad Cities, the website pops up, and there's a phone number or an email address to get that set up. After the new member orientation is complete, you just have to register for the groups that you want to go to, and that just gives us, an idea of the amount of people that are coming. Send you Zoom links if it's hybrid or virtual. So, yep, just complete the new member orientation, and then you can start going to groups.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a fairly simple process, and allows people to kind of get in there while the iron's hot, right? Because our motivation to get support can sometimes be really, really strong one day, and then the next day, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk to a bunch of strangers, right? So being able to get in there while we've got that desire for support and that need for support is just really, really great. Okay, so Gilda's Club Quad Cities. And if you don't know how to spell Gilda's, look up Gilda Radner. And Google will autocorrect whatever you type in there into Gilda's, and then you can look up Gilda's Club Quad Cities. So thank you so much, Emma, for being here. We appreciate you, and we appreciate the work that you're doing for Gilda's Club and the support that Gilda's Club is providing to so many people.
I'm Emma Morgan, and I need a counselor.
Me too. So does Chrissa. Thank you so much, Emma. And if you are in the Davenport Quad Cities area and looking for mental health counseling or behavioral health counseling for your kiddos, go ahead and give us a call, or therapy for your kiddos or adolescents. Give us a call, 800-531-4236. Emma's in charge of that office. And so if Emma doesn't have space to be able to meet with you, she's going to get you set up with a therapist in that office that she is supervising. So you're going to get somebody great. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening today. Again, give us a call, 800-531-4236 for mental health counseling, family counseling, and behavioral health intervention.
And like Julie mentioned at the beginning, we post new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central. So save up that laundry or meal prepping or exercising or whatever task you don't want to do and listen to us at the same time. And we can help get you connected with other resources or get set up with counseling that week as well. And if you have any questions for us or for Emma, you can reach out to us at You Need a Counselor Podcast on Instagram or on our Facebook page at You Need a Counselor Podcast there as well. So I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you.
Bye.
Bye.